So, John,
Yeah,
today,
what's been going on? What's in the news? I hear there's an
uh,
election.
I think that the American people are going to vote for president pretty soon. Um, and unfortunately, I don't trust about 48% of them.
Well, Kyle, I've heard that this is a very close election, so it must be that there are some real complications in choosing between the two, right? They have to be both providing um positive plans to move forward, and in particular to help the vast majority of the United States, the population, what is often referred to as the middle class or the working poor, depending on who's telling the story.
That
So, what do you think? Which one do you want to start with as far as that? You want to start with? We could do Trump really fast because his plan is to give tax breaks to corporations and the incredibly wealthy, and to lower prices for the middle class by using tariffs to leverage that and force prices down. My understanding, and listen, I don't know this because and you'll be able to explain it better, is that the vast majority of people who study these sorts of things don't think the tariff plan will work at all, and in fact think it will have the opposite
oh,
effect and be super bad.
okay, you're wrong
Okay.
because you said the vast majority of people who study this, and that's not true. 100% of the people who study this agree that tariffs are bad at bringing prices down. Not they don't, 100% don't agree that tariffs are bad, but they all
Hmm.
agree that tariffs are bad at bringing prices down. That's not what they're for. That's not what they do. It's never been what they've done, and it never will be what they do. They are specifically designed to stop people from undercutting prices.
Okay, but wait. I would think that if you coupled that with a real investment in American manufacturing, you could get a positive outcome. So if we look back at Trump's record, because he was the president of the United States, I don't know if you knew this, but he was. How much investment in infrastructure and American manufacturing did he accomplish during his 4 year term? Do you recall? 'Cause unfortunately, my recollection is bupkis. It's
Well,
not a
well,
fucking thing.
here's what he did is that he trusted that if he gave business owners massive tax breaks, that money that they saved, they would then reinvest into growing American manufacturing without government interference. Um,
Okay.
because
I
that's the party line, and then none of that happened.
Yeah, which feels like not a historical anomaly, right? Like that seems like how it works every time.
I mean, certainly not every time, but it is the times that people have that corporations and businesses have taken those tax breaks, that the wealthy have taken those tax breaks and reinvested them. Those are the historical anomaly. So they have happened.
Okay.
Um, and I'm certain even with this one, there probably were individual cases in which some business owner got a massive tax break and went, "Ooh, now I can afford to, uh, buy that widget press and make more widgets." Um, but they're the exception.
Yeah.
Generally, they use that money to do stock buybacks that benefit the very wealthy and the few upper middle class who happen to hold stock in that particular company or industry.
Okay, well that that seems to come down in her favor. Her plan is highlighted generally by actually creating tax incentives that are directed almost exclusively at like the middle class and the working poor, so they would actually
Well,
get the money. Right?
when you compare, so if you compare the tariffs, so okay, I want to take a step back. Um, the root problem that that Trump is seeking to address with tariffs is that businesses take jobs, mostly manufacturing jobs, but not exclusively manufacturing jobs, um, and they move them overseas where labor is cheaper. And he's like, okay, well, I have this stick, and I can swing this stick and get people to stop doing what I want them to not do. He's even gone so far as to say, okay, we're going to put a 100% tariff on, everything coming in from China. But then he says to John Deere, who is currently manufactures a significant portion of their American sold tractors in America. They're looking at moving to Mexico. A lot of that manufacturing. Trump has gone as far as to say, I'm going to put a 300% tariff on them if they do that, them
Hmm.
specifically. Um, that very well may discourage John Deere from taking their manufacturing and moving it to Mexico. More likely, it will encourage them to find some workaround to avoid those tariffs, and still
Hmm.
benefit from the lower wage. But even if it worked, like even if they left and Trump successfully levied that tariff on them, all that's going to mean is that a Chinese company that makes tractors, their tractors are still the cheapest tractors, and therefore
Yeah.
John Deere goes, maybe out of business. Now, I don't like that companies want to take their manufacturing and move it out of America to save money by paying people less than a living wage. Like
Yeah.
that sounds shitty to me. Um, but Trump's solution is simply, it's not a bad solution. It's it's not a solution. It doesn't fix the problem at all.
Yeah.
Um, Now Kamala Harris, her solution is more of a carrot approach. She wants to provide incentives to businesses that choose to stay here and manufacture. Um, I don't particularly like that either. To me, that's kind of like saying, "Hey, I know that if I walk through this neighborhood, I'm going to get mugged. So in order to prevent them from mugging me, I'm just going to hand money to them." Um, so I
I
kind of
think the
wish
metaphor is a little unfair, but I get it, and I understand what you're saying.
like in order to prevent bad action, I'm going to bribe you. That's what it is. Like that is what it is.
The problem is you have to culturally define what they're doing as a bad action. And
Yes,
while
and
they,
I wish we would do that
yeah,
better.
like actually hold them to account for producing shit with like labor that is not being paid at a living wage, no matter where it is. Like if there were repercussions to that, they wouldn't do it. And part of that needs to be, I hate to say it, the government can't necessarily. It may be that the government isn't the one to solve this problem. It is the consumer who should solve the problem by going to tell them to go fuck themselves. But I understand that it's far easier said than done, and there are roles that the government will have to play in that.
Well, and at this point, it verges on not a choice for the consumer to make, particularly when you look
Hmm.
at industries. If John Deere takes their manufacturing out of the U.S., I believe I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that will be the last domestic heavy farm equipment manufacturer having left. So
Yeah,
if you want a big ass garden tractor, you're gonna have to buy one that was manufactured overseas.
yeah,
It's not a viable option to say to the farmer, well, just don't buy a new tractor.
yeah. Of course.
Um, so you have problems like that where it's the consumer no longer has any leverage,
Yeah,
because it's buy from that company or you know go out of business, let your kids starve, like those level real bad
yeah.
choices.
It feels like the government's role might be, and maybe if they were more minute in their focus like this, would be like what the government needs to do is figure out whatever is necessary to make sure that there is one American company manufacturing like every product, like
Hmm.
with American workers at a competitive price. And maybe that means basically bribing the shit out of them, right? Effectively via tax breaks and everything
Well,
else. But like, go ahead.
I mean, yes, that is certainly one option. um,
Either and or a combination of bribing them and punishing the people who are
yeah,
like, but. but it can't be, and this does seem to be a government problem. We have the same issue with the Fed, like it's a choice of giant sticks, and once you pick a stick, you can't use any other stick. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait, why? Like, that's not how solutions usually work in the real world. Like, they're generally dynamic for dynamic problems. This is a dynamic problem. So, like, and this is a criticism of everyone. You know, we're certainly tangenting from the point, which was to compare the two people, but I have no issue with that because this may, in fact, be more interesting. But
Well, I mean, we're going to hit as many of the major election issues as we have time for, and the trade, various trade deficits, and that it's a big talking point right now.
yeah,
Um,
and I think it's fair to say, like, at the end of the day, like, there's no neither party has a perfect solution. Trump's solution seems to, in no way, affect the problem, like not at all. And Kamala's solution is probably not the best and won't solve the problem, but has a chance of pushing us in the correct
mhm.
direction.
Well,
And
so economically speaking, like coming from someone who studied economics, long term, Trump Trump's solution actually does tend to work. If you levy really punishing tariffs on imports over time, if companies believe that they can trust those tariffs, meaning that I look at those tariffs and I can expect them to stay in place, then it makes my entry into this manufacturing profitable, and therefore I will do it. Because when it comes down to it, like people who own businesses, run businesses, corporations, they're greedy. They want money. That's it. That's it even is in their mission statement at this point.
yeah, hold on a second. But even then, it doesn't actually like solve it solves a problem. But the
Yeah.
stated
Oh,
issue is
yeah.
prices and middle class poverty,
Hmm.
and it it doesn't there's no direct attachment to those things. Like, yeah, American manufacturing may approve, but then if you don't do other things, which he doesn't do, what that likely means is the people who own those companies make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Like, and unless you do things like raise the federal minimum wage or do things to protect and empower unions and things like that, which help with workers,
Hmm.
which he's against all of that.
Hmm.
Like, then all you're going to do is increase the wealth of people who own American
Yeah.
interests, and that doesn't.
I mean,
I think it would be good for America to catch up on manufacturing and be more, and therefore, like, kind of more self-sufficient. But I don't think that's not even the problem he says he's addressing, right?
well,
So, like,
yeah. I mean, he comes at it from the other end. He's like, I'm going to keep good paying jobs in America. Therefore, you'll have more money. Therefore, it won't matter that bread is more expensive. And also, China's going to pay for it because tariffs. Um, like that's his
not
his sales
apparently
his
not how
pitch.
tariffs work, but that's fine.
Um, yeah, I mean he's a one step thinker. So like if China is cutting a big fat check to the U.S., if Chinese companies are cutting a check when they import stuff to him, that's China paying for it. Okay, well where's China getting that money? Oh, well, I don't care. What does it matter?
Yeah,
Like,
and if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm not. What does he mean? Who pays for it? The people who buy the products from China, which is predominantly us.
oh, it's in this case it's going to be 100% us because they're just going to raise the price on everything they send over that we put a tariff on.
To America. Yeah.
And they don't import stuff that nobody bought. So, like, you're going to pay for
It might
that.
actually, you know what? He might actually be helping them out because honestly, like, why wouldn't they then increase the price worldwide just because they're like, oh, we can?
It's
Like,
possible.
You know what I mean? Like, why they might just have a formula. Like when I put the price of our coloring book in, it just calculates it across like every because we're in like every market like ever because we did it with Amazon. So like I think people in like Eastern Europe can fucking buy our coloring book if they want, which is pretty cool. Um, but I think we got Australia too. Gotta love the Aussies. Um, you hear that, Australia? Buy coloring books. I don't know. I don't know why I'm in such hard show mode. Show mode, right?
And to our Australian friends, you're dealing with two people who know that you've never said the phrase "throw another shrimp on the Barbie" because you call them prawn. So, we're cool.
Yeah. I do like Crocodile Dundee though, so if that takes us off the plate, I'm sorry. Like, I'm
I
not
mean, he's
saying you.
he's
It's
a
just fun.
real like he's actually Australian, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he wrote the movies. I mean, he's basically Sylvester Stallone. You
Okay.
know, he created his own fame. Uh, He married his co-star, who was hot. So I'm sorry. I'm tangenting again. All right.
Yeah,
So
now
anyway,
we're way off.
but we've gone way afield. So I think economics is, I mean, people and experts in politics often will say it's the economy stupid, every other
Hmm.
dumb phrase that come up for that's most people's number one. I don't know how true that is. I don't think people, I'm getting to the distinct impression people just vibe their way through this, which I find mildly frustrating because it's a really important decision.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of where it's the economy stupid comes from. I think people have always kind of vibed their way through things,
Yeah. Like,
and
how's my life going?
yeah, that's the number one thing. You how far your paycheck check is stretching is kind of the number one thing that's on your mind, if at least subconsciously, if not consciously, and that's how you feel about life. And if you're not living comfortably, if you're worried about making ends meet, then
Yeah.
you don't feel good. You don't think things are going well.
Hold
Um,
on. Have you? I just while I have this on my mind, have you seen any of the Jake Tapper, Mike Johnson interactions recently?
no.
I think Jake Tapper's gonna have an aneurysm on the air. It's because you can hear like the overwhelming frustration of him talking about first, I think really importantly, playing the multiple clips where Trump has said the enemy within, referring to Democrats.
Yes. Even specifically mentioning like Nancy Pelosi.
That's very important to this because Jake Tapper plays them for Mike Johnson or reads them. I'm not sure. I think he's been playing them recently because he's been having these precise issues with Republican actors. Um, and he says, "So what do you think about him talking about attacking his political rivals using the military?" And Mike Johnson said, "That's not what he said. He was talking about criminals and gangs that are taking over our cities." And Jake Tapper was like, "Nah."
Oh
And
wow.
then he made the point that you just made regarding like, no, he actually said names. He supplied names of people who are like elected Democratic members of the government. Like, people this dude knows because he's like Pelosi's in the house. You know what I mean? Like he theoretically works with her. He doesn't, but theoretically that's how it's supposed to work. Um, and actually has on a few, but that's neither here nor there. And he still was just like, that's not what he said. And it's like I understand Jake Tapper's because I think I would just tell him to get the fuck off my show,
Yeah.
and I don't think he can do that. So like so I get sort of being tongue tied at that point because how do you respond to just like an absolute denial of the patently obvious? Like,
I I don't know, but both the news media and the left need to come up with a effective way to respond to it because it's the Republican playbook at this point.
yeah,
Um, to tie it
and
back
I
in
think
to the economy, like
yeah,
they're out there going, okay, here's It's inflation. It's inflation, and the stock market is bad, and the economy is horrible, and blah blah blah. Like they're saying those words, and it's just false across the board. Like
Yeah.
things went up from inflation. Inflation is down. Corporations did not lower their prices back and are now
Yeah.
reaping record profits. Corporations are making record profits and telling you, the consumer, things are so expensive because our prices are higher. Well, no, you're making record profits.
I
Not you're
mean,
making profit, you are making record profits.
consume, consume, consume reasonable sources about the economy. Seek ones outside the country. Ideally, not Russian sourced ones because they have a little bit of an agenda. But it is. I have seen an incredible plethora of economic experts, super conservatives amongst them, who have had to acknowledge that America, under Biden and Harris, has had by far the best recovery from the pandemic of any country in the world. Far better than China. You know, Russia's fucking fighting a war, basically, because they were screwed and out of money. You know what I mean? So, like, it's just like, if your position is effectively they got lucky and it was because of things, even if you want to make the argument that like that's because of the plan that was left in place by Trump, I think you're lying, but at least you're like attached to a reality that could be true. But the story you're telling makes no sense. It's just, it's not, they've done a good job on that. You want to talk about the border? There were definitely times during the last 4 years where the border, like where people were coming through at like a pretty record amount, and it was. I don't think it was great. I wish that they had done a better job on that. It was not a priority early in this administration, and I think they deserve the criticism for that they've gotten. Honestly, probably more than they've gotten, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, but even that's gotten better. Like it's they talk about cities are burning down, and it's just not true.
Yeah,
Like
they run headlines like crime surge in New York City, and they're at near record lows, like
yeah,
murders and like violent crime in New York City, and like
yeah, most of the
what's
crime
up?
in New York
Auto
City,
theft.
most of the crime in New York City is done by the fucking people who run the cops and the mayor.
Who
I
are
mean, here's the thing.
unfortunately Democrats.
Here's the thing. Most of my best friends, and let's go back to that in a second. Most of my best friends live in New York City. I live in Las Vegas. Like, listen, and if a city is gonna burn, it's gonna be mine. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the picture that's painted. Like, of course, you can get a video of a bunch of crime going on in a corner in any city in the world. You know, it because when there's that many people in a small area, they bump into each other and they get pissed. It's a thing that happens. It's it's a thing you accept if you're gonna live in a city. Like it's
If
but
you're going to spend your life like a sardine, you're going to have conflict, and that's how cities, particularly like New York City, you're living in a can
yeah,
compared to the number of people there.
yeah. Like there's a reason you have to build up. You know, like even in the west of the United States, like it's not the same. The cities are designed differently. They sprawl.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of all suburbs, except for like some downtowns. And that's not a criticism. It's just different. Like that is not the East Coast. Those are not those cities. In particular, New York City. It
Yeah.
is an
I
insane
mean,
amount of people in a very small area.
just imagine, dear listener, if your entire extended family, grandparents, siblings, cousins, all moved into your house and lived there. What would happen to the level of conflict?
And dear listener, if you're suggesting that it would go down, you are a liar, and you can turn this off right now. I'm not interested in you listening to this. Because we're not gonna be friends. And if you are telling the truth, we're still not gonna be friends because I'm jealous because that's insane.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know what
know.
fucking family you come
No.
from. Either
I
way,
all
you're
right,
not welcome here.
and hey, this obviously doesn't apply to any of you from a culture that already live like that. You're kind
Yeah,
of
no, I
saints.
yeah. This is a very specific American issue of us being stupid. So what do you think the next big issue is? So I think we can agree economy is number one. So I think there are two choices here, and it sort of depends on your perspective. So I think it's either immigration, and maybe we can do like sort of immigration slash crime because they blame all crime on immigrants, um, or abortion
Well,
rights. Or
let's do immigration because we kind of started talking about the border already, and I think immigration has strong ties to economy, so there's some callback we can do.
yeah,
Um, so Obama has started hitting the campaign trail for Harris,
yeah,
which
he's the closer, baby.
I honestly think is a bad sign because it shows a level of concern that I wish people on the inside didn't necessarily have. But I'm
Okay,
glad
I
he's
can
out
make you
doing it.
feel better on that. I think I can
Okay.
make you feel better about that. This was the plan forever. Like this is what he does. This is entirely his choice, and he thinks he is most effective and his voice is best used as what he calls a closer.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't kidding. Like this is actually what like his team says. Like because they report on this. And so what he likes to do, what he does, what he chooses to do, and they can't make him do anything he doesn't want to do at this point, is that he wants to come in at the end because he believes that he can sort of make the final push, and that's the most effective use of his time and effort. And he
Okay.
thinks that if he does it the whole time, he'll sort of become background noise. So
Okay.
he wants to come in with the big swing.
All right. You're right. You
I
made me feel better.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I actually kind of find it a little bit like arrogant and irritating, and I wish he would just be part of the process. But also, I think our election processes are far too fucking long. So, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I think maybe he's selling a nice line of bullshit for I don't want to do this for
I
that
don't
long.
want to. Yeah.
which which would honestly be the thing I would most like to hear, but I understand that that's not what you say.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's the thing. Like, I'm judging him on quite a curve because I think he's an impressive person. So it's like, are you doing the awesome thing? And I think the awesome thing would be him being like, "Yo, I got a life, fuckers. Like, I'll come and help." But
um, so anyway, I saw him. I saw a clip of him talking the other day, and he was doing a lot of the, just to remind you, Donald Trump spent 4 years as president, and he was talking about the border, and he's like, he's telling you that he has the solution, that he's going to deport a bunch of people, and that everything's going to be great. He didn't do it. He had
yeah,
the chance, and he didn't do it. The number of illegal migrants estimated to be in the United States, and it's an estimation because they're illegal; they're not all tracked.
mm-hmm.
Was virtually the same at the start of Donald Trump's 4 years and the end of his 4 years. In contrast to Obama, who at the end,
Kicked a lot of
very
fucking
left-leaning
shit.
people were calling him the deporter in chief as a
Yeah,
criticism.
yeah,
So, you know, and John and I are probably on their side, which we might get to in a second here. At least I intend to. Um, so he was just pointing out, like Trump had 4 years, or if you want to be, kind of more strictly true to practicality, 2 years when the Republicans controlled everything,
hmm
where he could have done any of that stuff he wanted to, and he didn't. So why would he do it now? He doesn't
yeah,
want to. He doesn't want to fix the problem. If it is even if it is a problem, which I
yeah.
think
I
there are
mean,
certain aspects that are a problem.
there's strong evidence in his own quotes and the quotes of his colleagues in Congress that there was a bill that would have facilitated improving the issue, giving the president more power to do so, and he actively undermined it. He told them not to pass it. It was designed by Republicans. It
Yeah,
was it was,
Senator James Langford from Oklahoma, I believe, who is one of the more conservative members.
and it's just like that would be such a deal breaker for me right there. It's like, okay, so you are putting yourself over like
Yeah, but
fixing the problem you
even
claim is destroying us.
even beyond that, like at that one, people are going, well, look, he cares about getting elected more than solving the problem, and people are like, well, no, it's really important that he gets elected, so we can
Yeah,
deal with that problem for an extra year, but then he's really going to fix it
but
and
then
say
he's gonna
bullshit,
really
fix
fix it.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
But like you can't even have that argument because he had 4 years to fix it and did nothing except separate kids from their parents and put them in cages. That's what he did. Um,
yeah,
but in reality, he likes the migrants because rich people like the migrants. You know why? Because they work under the table for less than minimum wage.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there are industries in this country that are built on having to illegally hire illegal immigrants to do the work, and it's usually
And
agricultural.
and that's the strong tie-in with the economy that I wanted to get to. And I'm not saying that we should just turn a blind eye and let illegal migrants want. I think we should be more generous with who we let into the, not who, the number of people we let into the country on like migrant worker visas. Because you always hear the cry of, oh, they're taking our jobs. No, they're not. The immigrants who are taking the jobs you want already are getting in. They're coming in on the HB1 or the H1B, which is the so-called genius visa, which they have really in-demand skills. We not only let them come, we recruit them to come. They're taking the
Yeah,
jobs that, all the people crying they're taking our jobs. They're taking the jobs they actually want. Of course, those are jobs the people crying they're taking our jobs are not qualified for.
yes.
Um, and that's
It's
why
important
we
to point
encourage
out.
them to come here.
Yeah,
Well, the jobs they're taking are minimum wage jobs at restaurants, uh, less than minimum wage jobs picking fruit and vegetables. And when we don't have them, for example, during the pandemic, the economy suffers. We had fruit rotting on the trees during the pandemic because we didn't have anyone to harvest them.
it's such an important point. I want to hit that again because I was going to say it if you didn't. Here's what happened. We tested your premise. The the they're taking our jobs tried, right? Tested your premise. They didn't take the jobs. They were not allowed to because global pandemic. And you know what the result was? No one did the job. Literally, shit just rotted. Okay, so my position towards you at this point is fuck off. Okay,
Yeah,
like
yeah. And then the
like
prices for us at the grocery store went up because
because supply went
significant
down.
portions of the supply had rotted in the fields. Um, and one of the arguments people make is, well, if people can't hire those illegal workers, then they'll have to raise their wages to whatever it would take to get American workers to go out and do it. Also, didn't happen. They did
Yeah,
they did raise their wages, like they tried to, and still, you guys who were crying they're taking our jobs were like, well, I'm not gonna go pick apples. That sounds hard.
and you're right. I don't want to pick apples either, but I don't bitch about them taking my jobs. I don't want to clean up other people's shit, and I literally mean shit. I don't want to clean up. I don't want to do any of the crappy jobs that they end up taking. I think they
Yeah,
should get paid
I
better for
don't
doing
I
the
don't want to
crappy
work an
jobs.
overnight shift at an inner city fast food restaurant. I don't want to work the overnight at that White Castle down the road from our apartment in Brooklyn. You kidding me?
And and I'm going to point out something that bothers people, and it's not to say this is not an argument for us opening our borders, but people should understand the history of this shit. And we're past the point where we could just open the borders again. It's no longer a feasible way to approach this issue, in my opinion. But for a long time, the relationship between America and Mexico was such that the borders were open and workers came here, helped in the fields, made sure shit didn't rot, therefore maintaining our supply, and then went the fuck back to
They
Mexico
took the
with their
money and
families,
went home.
and they were able to then support their families for the year, and it was seasonal. They came in to do the work during the season when shit's ripe, and then gets picked, and then they went back home, and it helped maintain some wealth in Mexico, and we got the work we needed and didn't want to do, and it worked fine. And then people were like fear mongers, you might recognize, and people that were like, they're taking our jobs, decided we had to close the border. And you made it so people couldn't do that anymore. So then they had to make the choice, come here, and then they couldn't go home. So they had to stay. So you create an illegal immigration problem. And now we have that problem. So we have to deal with that problem. But like part of this that we should understand as America is that we made this problem. And it might have come anyway. You know, this was before shit like, terrorism and dirty nuclear bombs and all these crazy threats that existed that might have forced a more secure border on us anyway. But we had a thing that was working that didn't stress the country the way this does, and we broke it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, and there's an in between. Like you don't have to just let people wander across the border, but you can, you can vet people and then just give them a piece of paper. Like here's your worker ID number. Um, and the whole like, oh, and now we're paying for their health care and we're doing this and we're doing that. No, we're not. They're not
Yeah,
eligible for those government aid programs unless they're children. Because if you're a child, we don't care if you're here illegally. You shouldn't suffer. So like we don't
yeah,
check. Like if you're a kid, you can you get what you need, or not even what you need. We help you. If only we made sure all kids got what they need. Um, but there aren't these illegal migrants, collecting welfare checks. It's not a thing.
no,
We don't give them welfare. Um, are there some cases where they're able to get a fake ID off someone else's social security number, blah, blah, blah? Of course there are. Of course there are individual cases where people are able to game, exploit, or defraud the system. That is true of anything that qualifies as a system.
yeah. And any
Um,
group of people, like, that's not unique to immigrants. There are a bunch of rich assholes that are
no,
gaming the
they,
system. And everyone,
if you look at the damage done to the American tax dollar,
not close.
and you were to compare rich white people to everybody else, you're not even going to notice the other slice of the pie. It's going to be you're
Yeah.
going to go, oh, it's 100% rich white people if I graph that in a pie chart.
And then Kyle's gonna pull out a magnifying glass and he's gonna like really go over this one little section. It's gonna take him a little minute to find it because he'll forget where it was. Just for effect, he won't actually forget where it was. Um, but then and then he's gonna find this little tiny sliver. And then I think he's a cartoon in my head in this image. And then he pulls out a gigantic microscope, which then makes that into like a bunch of other little slivers.
Yeah.
Just to kind of illustrate the point here. Like this is just the ones the ones really manipulating our government are the very ones that are just absolutely fucking all of us. Just in such a real way and nearly constantly. And then you all look up to them for it. It's great.
Um, so anyway,
Fuck you,
to
Elon.
to
Sorry.
to
Just one more.
tie
Sorry.
to tie back that it's funny that an immigrant is really crying
Yeah.
about immigration right now. Um,
Talk about an immigration problem with that fucker.
um, to tie that back into as far as the election, so we kind of went over the fact that Trump's plan is actually to do nothing and use immigration as fear to get people to vote for him, and then as cheap labor to benefit his billionaire friends. Um,
Yeah,
that's his actual plan. No matter what he says, that's his plan. We know because that's what he did for 4 years.
yeah.
Um, Kamala,
So what's her plan?
Kamala has a different plan. She wants basically, and she said this. She has come out and said that if given the opportunity, she will institute the bill that was negotiated bipartisanly, and that Trump had MAGA Mike Johnson shoot down in the House. That bill includes hiring a ton of funding the hiring of a ton of border agents, which will help stop illegal crossings, uh, providing a bunch of judges for the asylum system. Right now, legally, by federal law, if someone shows up at a port of entry and says, I am seeking asylum, we cannot turn them away. That is the law. However, with the number of asylum judges that we have, those are the people who their sole job is to rule on whether or not a person has just cause to obtain asylum. They're not, it's not like a regular judge, and that's one of the things that they see. This is their sole job. With the number of them we have compared to the number of asylum seekers who we can't turn away legally, it takes years from when you say I am applying for asylum to when you get seen in front of a judge. So our options are to take those people and put them in like a camp someplace, like say, take them and concentrate them in a particular area where we can watch them. Um, or to issue them a piece of paper and let them go about their business. Those are our legal options right now.
Yeah,
Um, so you have a lot of them wandering around the country doing work, you know, and legally because they have this, they're on an asylum seeker visa effectively. Um, the bill wanted to hire a bunch more asylum judges, which would, you know, logically expedite that process. You wouldn't have people having to wait 7 years before their case was heard. And that means that more people who shouldn't be here because their asylum claims are BS are going to be deported back to where they come from. That should make some of you happy.
and
Um,
I think despite the tone of that, and I understand the irritation, I think Kyle and I agree with that. Like that, yeah, we should facilitate that process because the the reasonable option and what happens, as he said, is they're released into the country. And if they do suck, if they are full of shit, if they are some like drug dude trying to like get into the country to do bad shit, then I don't want them free in the
but
country.
you don't
I
think
want
we should go with the option where we concentrate them in camps?
I'm opposed to any time those words are in the same sentence, basically.
I
Like,
mean,
try
yeah,
to sneak it by me, but
kind of the
yeah, no.
point.
What was it? Did you see him? And I'm sorry, but this you brought it up, so I have to go. Did you see him implying that the January 6 people in jail were were like the concentration camp victim, like the Japanese internment camp? That's what it was.
I didn't, but
Yeah, no, he did that. He did that. George Takei was not happy about it, which I think is a good person if you would like to know more about this. Um, it's pretty. It's
yeah.
it's
I
dark.
mean,
It's dark.
he goes out and says things like January 6th was a day of love.
Yeah. That was such a ballsy answer because that was literally a guy on Univision, like with a huge Latino audience who was just like, "Hey man, do me a favor and like don't be a dick like
Yeah.
about this. Like acknowledge some fault on January 6th. Like not, you don't have to acknowledge all of it, I mean, just give me something
Yeah,
so
hey,
that I can vote
hey,
for you.
it didn't turn out the way I expected, and I wouldn't do things that way again.
Yeah,
Like that's all that guy probably needed. He was desperately looking for an excuse to vote Republican. I don't know
yeah.
why, but
Tradition, I think, probably some sort of self-image thing that Americans do, I think, to a horrible fault, is what we've learned over the last decade or so, where it's like I am either Republican or I am Democrat, and it's like maybe just I am American and I need to vote for best thing for America. Not worry so much about. Although they've made it easy for me.
hmm,
I so fundamentally disagree with the Republican. It's hard to call it a
yeah,
platform. I think that gives it too much credit.
um, yeah. I don't know how much it's been represented in previous recordings that we've put out, but I'm a middle of the road guy. Like I am an independent voter in that I have, to me, a number of important policies in which I am slightly conservative or was conservative. It's still conservative, but like the conservatives have gone so far that like I'm not actually aligned with them either. And then
I think it's in a normal world, I think that you would lean a little bit intellectually conservative, socially liberal, ultimately.
yeah,
I'm probably not as far as people would think, but liberal in both metrics, like intellectually and socially. Um, and the
um,
weird thing is, like, if you listen to the current Republican Party, both Kyle and I are radical psychos, socialist
yeah,
communists.
and it's
Like,
so
and
easy. Like
it's
it's
just,
so easy at this point. I can go, oh, do you like? If I could ask someone, like if they were going to answer honestly or answer at all, it's like, okay, you support Trump. If you say yes, not only do I disagree with you politically, I I am certain that you are a horrible person that I do not want in my life. I literally have family members who I have cut out of my life. And people are like, well, you shouldn't let politics and this is not about politics anymore. Like Trump is an existential threat to my family's well-being.
yeah.
And you're saying I like him. Okay, well then I don't like you. That's it. That's all there is to it. Like if you're willing to vote for Trump at this point, you are a bad person. There are a number of different ways you could be a bad person, but you're a bad person.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 99% right. I think if you say you like Trump, that's an easy one. We're done. I'm with you. I think if you are holding on to that sort of I'm voting for the lesser of two evils, like
Nope, bad person.
I I know it's your position, and I'm not even sure I disagree with you. I'm just how much I have to sort of determine how much I think you are at fault for your decision to consume the sources of information that you have,
Hmm.
and then what those sources are and what they're telling you. You know what I mean? Because there's a person who has been so epically failed by like our education system and like just the culture that I just have some patience for them being a conspiracy
I
theorist who thinks
yeah, I
like
just
they're out to get them. I know. I'm not saying you should.
no, but I want to
I just
explain why I
do.
don't. Like at this point, you've seen the other side. Like even if all you watch is Fox News, like you exist on the internet, you have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or all of the above. Like you've seen it. You've seen the counterclaim and you've decided, no,
Mhm.
that person doesn't agree with me, therefore they are full of shit. I am not going to listen to any evidence counter to what my echo chamber has told me. You've made that decision.
See, but the part that I think is sort of are you undercounting how much the argument that that side makes for her being evil?
No, because I don't care. Like, I mean, what are they saying that she's doing that is evil? She's using your tax money to pay for transgender uh, prisoners to get sex
Amongst,
change
yeah,
operations.
amongst
Like,
other things,
I,
letting people in the country, destroying our
I
economy.
yeah, but the economy's not destroyed.
That's fair.
Like, and you live in the economy, and if you're like, you are literally choosing to believe Tucker Carlson instead of your own eyes. Like, I'm not saying no one's having a tough time, but our economy is not destroyed.
Yeah.
Like the Fox will come on and go, the economy's in the toilet. The stock market sets another record, like within 5 seconds of each other. Or
Hmm.
they'll say the economy's in the toilet while the stock ticker at the bottom is talking about how we've set a 300th record while Joe Biden was in office.
Well, what if you're not a Fox consumer? What if you're like a Twitter slash TikTok slash YouTube consumer?
I mean, you've definitely seen the other side and just chosen to assume that everyone's a liar without vetting any actual facts.
I mean, have you or do you get so consistently algorithm? And I'm asking questions, Kyle. I'm not. This is
Mm-hmm.
an interesting conversation. If if we are different here, and I think we probably are slightly different, it is a matter of degrees, not difference. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
I'm just insanely more patient. Um, and most people I talk to, I would find out that they don't fit into even what I'm looking for
Mm-hmm.
because they will be a consumer of. They'll be like, oh yeah, no, 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 I know. And it's like, well, what? Like, or they'll be like a. I mean,
I mean, I can accept a hypothetical of a person who only consumes algorithmed internet content and only sees people who are grossly conservative. And I'm using the word grossly intentionally. Like that was not me
yeah.
struggling to find a word. Even then,
He's saying they're gross. Okay, he's not saying. Go ahead.
even then, I feel like a lot of the times they're putting up things from the left to attack. And if you see enough of those things, you're still making that choice. But like I guess that's my point. Like I can accept your hypothetical of someone who really is only echo chamber. Like that's all they get exposed to. They're not choosing or they're not like seeing stuff from the outside and choosing to ignore it. Um, I just don't care. I don't. That's a baby that I'm willing to throw
That's
out with the
fair.
bathwater at
That,
this point. Like
that's
it's
fair.
if
That's fair.
you're that far in the rabbit hole, you're not salvageable anymore. Sometimes you just got to cut off the gangrenous foot. Like it just there's no choice. Um,
You know, I think culturally, like where we would be better off, and where we might actually be able to help some of those people, kind of the very small category of people we're talking about. And this might help others, but I think them in particular would be us openly talking about the fact that racism and misogyny are creating a bias in some people that are pushing them in one direction over the other. And like, if we talked about that more out loud, maybe some of the people who are doing what I'm saying, who are quote unquote algorithms, could acknowledge that maybe there's a reason why they're algorithms, right? Outside of the their who they like or the particular point of views they're looking for, that there is something else impacting and informing what they see. And I just what I'm saying is y'all have a problem with women and or people of color. And you should probably take a long look at that. Because I don't think those things should be major factors in this particular decision. Could you, in particular, man versus woman, could you create a scenario where I would absolutely acknowledge that there's a difference and I need to know? Um, yeah, probably solely within the realm of me needing physical help with something. And and really raw strength. Because if it's fine detail, then it really goes back to that part doesn't matter anymore. So like, just I don't know, be better people would be my would be my desire. And I'm not saying don't feel that. Like that's natural. It's understand that that's not rational, that that's feelings, and that not all feelings are things that we should base decisions on, particularly decisions that affect other people, and fucking stop it. Um, I don't know. What's our next category? Is it time for have we quote unquote finished immigration, despite the fact that the end of that probably had nothing to do with it. Um,
Yeah, but that's how our conversations go. We start someplace, we wind up someplace. There's a lot of stops in the middle, and some of them are not at all related to the thing we were talking about, and that's fine.
so I mean, do we really need to talk much about the the abortion issue? I mean, I feel like we may have covered this in previous episodes, but
I mean, for the sake of completeness, we should probably outline it. If Trump is elected and the, particularly if they take the House and the Senate, with him already basically owning the Supreme Court, and once again used the word I wanted to use there. Um, there's going to be a national abortion ban. He says there's not. He's a liar. We know he's a liar. We've known he's a liar since he was a businessman in New York, well before he ever became a political candidate.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty about this, historically speaking, bans on abortion are bad for women's health and generally just the health of society because women are actually a part of society. It is a, often a necessary medical procedure, and particularly the total bans are simply dangerous and stupid.
yeah,
Now, um, Trump is fond of saying that all the legal scholars and all the people wanted it this way. They wanted the states to be able to decide. That was the plan. I've been alive for a while. Went to law school, have consumed information regarding this particular issue for a long time. He's patently and completely full of shit on this. Like, particularly because he says everybody. Were there people who wanted it to the states? Yes. It was not the majority. That
mm-hmm.
is just it's just not true. He is simply verifiably lying about this.
and
Um,
that, and he does that all the time. Verifiably
yeah,
lies. It's just that he knows the people on his side aren't going to fact check him, and the people who are his sycophantic voters don't care.
and not for nothing at this point, like he won't put himself in a room with anyone who will fact check. He didn't go on the 60 Minutes thing because he knew he'd get fact checked. He won't do a second debate because he might get fact checked. Like, and they even said like, okay, we won't. I mean, he's going to get fact checked by her if he debates her, so he's going to get fact checked, but not by the moderators necessarily. Although their lives are so fucking dangerous that even at this point, like as JD Vance complained about, even when they
Yeah,
agree to no fact checking, I just think news people are sometimes going to go like, "Hey, dude, fucking chill,
yeah.
man. Stop lying about eating the dogs. It's fucking weird. Stop it." Okay, but so he lies about it. I agree with Kyle, and it's a strong likelihood is that there would be a national ban on abortion. I think that he has said that at times. He goes back and forth on it quite a bit. Weirdly, doesn't get criticized for that, while Kamala is routinely criticized for having changed her positions on things. Um, he's, I mean, one of the consistent things between our last conversation and this one is that it shows that he is only going to do what is politically expedient for him in any scenario. It has nothing to do with improving our situation. It is about in the immigration scenario, it could have gotten better. There was a law that would have very likely improved the situation. He undermined it because that was better for him. In this scenario, Depending on what audience he's in front of, depending on what he thinks people want to hear, he kind of switches back and forth within a certain realm of options on
Hmm.
abortion. It is incredibly hard to pin him down as to what he actually thinks. But because it will make the people that he gets paid by happiest, um, I think I think you're right, and the national ban is the outcome if he's
I mean,
elected.
there's no way he's vetoing one. Like that's really what it. Whether or not he'll get on board for pushing it through and throw the weight of the president behind it, I I think it's irrelevant. I don't. To me, he's probably too lazy to do that,
I'll
but
sign
it
it.
doesn't actually matter. Like he'll
Yeah, he'll
sign it.
sign it. 100%. If it gets to him, he'll
Um,
sign it. You think he'll do the DeSantis like 3 a.m. signing, or do you think you'd have like a big old show
oh
about
no,
it?
no, 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 no. Ceremonial pens
Big
and
show. Yeah, I'm with
and
you.
like children behind him is, it's gonna be ridiculous. Um,
Um, I mean, at that point, I would say also IVF is threat. I don't
yeah,
know.
the difficulty with IVF is while IVF, like, all right, IVF involves the death of embryos. It does. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
or, if death isn't the word you want to use, that's fine. I don't have a better word to throw out there, and I don't want to use some giant phrase about, the reaching a point of non-viability or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not throwing out a moral judgment with that word. Um, some states have been really harsh about that already when given the freedom. Um, I just saw the other day that there was some state governor or something or someone for state senate was being interviewed, and he said every one of those fertilized eggs is a baby. Um, that
And the
you
thing
know,
is, like, if that is your position, if that is your philosophy on this issue, then you have to fight against IVF.
yeah.
You have to. Like, it is from that perspective. I do not believe this, but if you believe that perspective, then it is mass murder.
Hmm.
So I get it. And I understand why and I think it is your important right to argue vociferously for it to be banned. And I think we live in a democracy, and the fact that 80% of the country disagrees with you, and I think on IVF it's worse for you, more like 90-10, then yes, you have the right to yell for the rest of your life, but we should be ignoring
Hmm.
you as a country and as a government. What a national ban is a minority view. It is not, no matter what you think. And listen, if you disagree with us passionately, I get it. You're allowed to. This is great. We live in a democracy, freedom of speech, all these great things. But it is anti-democratic that these laws have been imposed on those who don't
Yeah.
believe the same you. That's not how this is
I
supposed to
mean,
work.
the percentages for people believe that like really early term abortive things are murder. It's about the same percentage of people that believe meat is murder. So like
Uh,
if you think that you as that small minority should get to dictate that that is murder, then you have to let them, now anyone who eats a hamburger is guilty of murder because you have a minority who believes that.
yeah.
And
And my final point on this, and then I hand it off to you because I don't think I have much else to say, is him and Vance and some of the Republicans like to talk a lot about after viability abortions, abortions that happen even after the child is born. This is literally a South Park joke. This is stupid. It doesn't happen. It's insane. That's called murder. Stop it.
Mhm.
Just fuck,
the
man. It's
so
rampant bullshit.
yeah, it's a lie. It's not happening. Are there late term babies that are dying? Yes, there are, because that happens sometimes.
And it
And some
sucks for
and
everybody.
sometimes it involves a medical procedure. Yes, sometimes a doctor has to go in and remove a baby that has died in a mother's womb because of some horrible thing. The Republicans are calling that an abortion. And
Or they are being insufficiently careful in the writing of their laws that that is being considered an abortion and made illegal, which is
no, I mean these ones are
risking the
calling
lives of women.
the ones out there saying that you're having ninth month
Yes,
abortions are
that's
calling
fair.
that an abortion. They're just that's what they're calling when they say that's happening. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about a baby whose skull never forms and whose brain has been crushed. They,
Yeah.
and you know it's not a, like that. It would have been a baby, and that mother is probably heartbroken. And you're telling her that getting the medical procedure which saves her life by removing a non-viable entity, like they're calling, they want her in jail and her doctor in jail. And
Yeah, women have died in the country already because of shit like this. Because that procedure wasn't allowed, the doctors were afraid to do it. And then they like to go back in after the fact and they say, well, the doctor was wrong, he could have done it.
mhm,
It's not good law. Like what
yeah,
you're finding out is it's not good law. It's hurting people. Like it's just like even if we want to have, I'm willing to have a conversation about where the line should be more, but it's not at 6 weeks and it's not at nothing. You know, when it's okay to have an abortion. Like we can have a real conversation about that, but we can't start a genuine conversation about that if you're going to claim that people are having late term abortions and that's actually a part of what we're talking. That is a separate thing. That is a doctor making a purely medical choice based on a a a, a, a fetus that has either died or who has no chance of living and is at this point more accurately
only a
a
threat to the mother's
parasite,
life.
for
Like,
its mother's life. Yeah, it's I'm having trouble talking about it, not because I'm struggling for words, but because it's sad. I have a tear coming to my eye. This is a nightmare. And it's not good when through the government's choices these situations are being made worse. Even if you believe that this was going to come to a good outcome, it's not. Like we've done the test.
mhm.
It's tragic.
It never does. I mean, you look at Ireland. Ireland had a full abortion ban for something like 2 decades.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
Catholicism.
and the natal related mortality rate, meaning deaths of children and mothers, was higher with the abortion ban in place than before the abortion ban in place. And they've since repealed it. They've removed the
Mm,
abortion ban. Um, because basically what we learned is that if a woman is carrying a child that they really don't want,
they get an abortion.
they get an abortion. That's it. That's all there is to it. Oh well, abortion's not legal. Okay, then for hey, some graphic words are about to be said. So if you want to skip forward a few minutes, now might be a good time. They meet a guy in an alley with a coat hanger, or they roll themselves down a flight of stairs, or they intentionally get into a car accident, or they have someone kick them, or they take chemicals, or they take herbs.
Or they go to Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
well, from
if
Ireland, they probably don't, but
yeah. But no, the reason I say that is because if you need to if you need to know about Sally Field recently released a video. It's on like all the social medias where she talked about getting an abortion when she was a teenager and having to go to Mexico to do it, and just this is what we're this is what they want to go back. Like, it's not. I'm not trying to be dramatic or it just is. Listen to what she went through, and make your fucking choices. Like, I can't help you any more than that. If you can look at that story and be like, yeah, no, this is definitely the right approach to this, then we just fundamentally disagree about the way things should work and what matters and what doesn't. And that's fine. We're in a democracy. I hope more people agree with me.
Well,
I
and we
don't
know
know
they
more
do
people agree.
because the polling all shows that vastly more people think abortion should be an option that women have up to a certain point. Now, obviously, once you start breaking down to like a week's thing, the percentages change and all of those things. But just from a binary choice of they should be allowable at some point to never allowable, almost no one likes never allowable.
Yeah. I mean, and here's another part. Well, I know I said I was done, but I lied. Look at the actions of the Republican Party. They like to talk about how they gave it back to the states. Okay. Some states have put it on the ballot. It has lost, meaning abortion rights were upheld in every state. Some states, like fucking Kentucky, okay, where nobody thought that's how that was going to go.
And it won
Okay.
with like 70 something percent.
So
Enshrining
what are
abortion rights into the state constitution of Kentucky won with like 70 something percent.
so I think it's illustrative to look at how other states' legislatures have handled that news. Have they, as you might believe, gone like, oh, wow, they gave it back to the states. We should probably put something in the ballot so we know whether our people want it or not, because they're the state, right? That you would think. You would be wrong. In particular, state legislatures that are controlled by Republicans, they fight tooth and nail. They use all their resources, all their tricks, and all their power to keep it off the ballot in almost every
They
situation.
they try to change the state constitution to prevent ballot initiatives. They, I mean,
Cha-
like
Change
he's
rules about like what percentage it takes
yeah.
to actually get things on the ballot. Like they try every possible underhanded, overhanded, side, all the tricks. They try
To
everything, every
deny
strategy they have.
people their opportunity to democratically select their position on the issue.
And in case it's not clear, that's because they know they're gonna fucking lose. Okay, like just to say the words, they know with certainty. Maybe they didn't before that Kentucky vote, but now they do, and they're like, well, fuck that. We we want we want it to be our way. We don't care what most of you think.
Hmm.
Cool. Those are your democratically elected. That is the attitude of the Republican Party. Your democratically elected representatives is fuck most people.
Yeah.
But keep voting for them. Makes perfect sense. What's the next issue, Kyle? We can talk about guns. Here's the thing. I bet you all my money that both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have shot more guns than Donald Trump has. They're both gun owners. And somehow they're the anti-gun guys. And I deliver mail that talks about how Kamala's coming for their guns. And I'm just like, this is so dumb. It's so wild.
I
This
mean,
is another thing that really falls into the like 80% of the country agrees on most of this stuff.
yeah, not even necessarily gun control in the sense of you don't get to have your guns, but when you break it down to like background checks, like
Yeah.
just people are like, yes, we should be able to get like convicted violent felons to not be able to buy a gun at a gun show.
Yeah. It's really, you know, the percentages are lower, but most people come around on the red flag laws. Like
Hmm.
it's just it makes sense given how incredibly dangerous guns are and how many, in particular, long rifles, automatic and semi-automatic long rifles, just because they're efficient. Listen, you can kill a lot of people with them. My idea was always that we should rate guns by kills per second, and if over a certain amount of kills per second, more regulation, and that way we don't have to argue about what an assault rifle is.
Hmm.
You just be like, well,
Yeah,
this
you just have a
murders,
metric.
yeah, just murders per second. Like, that'll be MPS, murders per second. We'll just bang this shit out, and the thing is like, and maybe have some sort of like maybe we have a metric that also includes like from what distance.
Hmm.
So like, and somehow that's mathed into like your final score.
Yeah, because a shotgun at close range, if you bunch people up, could really
Do some
like
damage. Yeah,
break the numbers, kind of. Um,
yeah. But I feel like we could find something. I feel like there's nuance here, and I feel like it already falls into what like because like sawed-off shotgun more dangerous than regular shotgun because
mhm.
it just spreads more and you kill more people, right? Like more murders per second. It's
All right.
just
Well, I think the sawed-off shotgun really the concealability is the issue with it.
there was both. Oh yeah, no, because they don't do they saw
They
the barrel too, right?
yeah, so a sawed-off shotgun, you cut the barrel down, which leads to a
Yeah,
wider spread just from the nature of physics,
yeah.
and a decreased accuracy at longer range, lower muzzle velocity, so the actual things that are
So
flying
just
out of
sort
the
of just
um,
overall more dangerous.
well, actually, I mean that's it. It's not really though, because in order for a
Okay.
sawed-off shotgun to be effective, the range in which you can kill someone is shorter. So like as
Yeah,
far as a more dangerous thing, it actually evens out kind of, except
that it's also concealable.
that you can hide it in your coat. So like if
Yeah.
someone walks into a movie theater with a shotgun, you can go, that dude's got a gun. I think I'm going to run. If someone has a sawed-off shotgun in their trench coat, you might go, that dude's wearing a trench coat. I'm going to run, but probably not.
This depends entirely on environment. I know in particular populations of urban people, and I'm not using that code for anything. I just mean people who grow up in certain cities who would immediately like at least be on their toes, right? Like, and let's be blunt, if we then change the environment to a suburban setting, I think they're in a lot of trouble because I just don't think they're going to be toast. I think they're going to be like, oh, trench coat. Is that London fog? I don't think they're going to be like like you know. Where I think if you walk into the city, like in a theater in the right neighborhood in the city, the people are like, whoa, what's that fucker up to? Hold on,
As
hold on.
as John would kind of personally know having worn a long leather duster for a significant portion of
In
the time.
Brooklyn and New York City for a long time, and yes, people did react to me when I walked in. I'm also 6'2", like 240 and 250, and bald headed. So, and I read as whatever race you're not. So I'm often seen as a threat. If you don't understand what I mean, look at a picture of me. Go to my Twitter profile.
He's it's, I'll explain it anyway. He's just brown enough to be a Mexican if you're white, but to be white if you're Mexican. So like
Yeah, and I have a
it
broad
makes you
nose, so some
nervous.
people decide I'm African American. Part, not no one thinks I'm 100%. Turns out that a lot of these people actually are right when I did my genetics. So like, yay for racist? I don't know. It's I'm conflicted about it. Um,
I mean, profiling is used because it works a lot of the time. Doesn't make it good from a moral standpoint, but
yeah, it doesn't necessarily justify its use, but we part of the equation shouldn't be pretending that it is absolutely ineffective or useless strategic. That's not true. It may not be worth the downside. That is an interesting conversation to have. Unfortunately, that's not usually the conversation that's had, which is disappointing. But I understand it's because it got abused. You know what I mean? I get. there comes a point where I get the people who kept getting fucked by a thing going like, I don't care, I don't like the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, well,
Okay.
I get it.
So I'm running short on time for this particular conversation, but I would like to say some things about guns that would piss large numbers of people off. Whether or not it'll piss anyone off, you know, goes on whether or not anyone listens to this. So I'm probably fine. Um, so the Second Amendment doesn't say what you've been told it says. Doesn't. Supreme Court's full of shit. You, as an individual, do not have an unrestricted right to own weapons. You don't. You never did. The framers never intended that. The Republicans, the NRA, and the Supreme Court have fucking lied to you. That's it.
Yeah, I'll go a step further. The founding
The-
fathers were fucking elitists. There's no way they meant every motherfucker should have a gun. That would have horrified them.
no, no, white landowners should be able to have a gun so that they can fight back against a tyrannical government. That's what they wanted. They wanted white landowners to be able to form and lead a militia against a government who was trying to take their land and or money. That's what they wanted. Along the
And
way,
this
conservative politicians have been bought
by the NRA largely.
by a gun
Who
lobby
pushed this, yeah, who pushed
because,
this very hard.
you know, they can make a lot of money. That's
Because
it.
they have made a fuck ton of money. Yeah, it is. It is just. And listen, if you're like these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Once again, law school graduate, passed the bar in New York City. Like I absolutely know what I'm talking about on this one. It is. They want to just. It is funny that a group that has been largely defined as far as legal theory goes by the originalist moniker or like a strict textualist model just reads out whole sections of the Second
Yeah.
Amendment as if it's
No,
there.
a
Right.
well-regulated militia being fundamental, the government shall not infringe upon the people's rights. Yeah, that first part, that's just flowery language. That was just a picture. That has nothing to do with the actual law. That's what the Supreme Court basically said.
Which is interesting considering most of the people who agreed on that decision have strongly argued against that very concept in most of their cases,
Um,
which is ignoring sections and
yeah,
pretending it's flowery language goes very much against strict textualism. But strict textualism actually being the legal theory that to paraphrase a lot of bullshit is every word matters, every comma matters. That's strict text. They are most of them defined as that, usually defined as that. It is amazing how in the Second Amendment cases they're like, "Where'd that go?
yeah,
That's
they just
whoa!"
forgot that's the thing.
Like, "Oh no, that's not how any of this works." Yeah, cool.
Next,
Why?
the
Oh, next
concept,
is next. Oh.
the concept that you need access to guns so that you can fight back against the United States government if it decides to become tyrannical is laughable to the point of clinical insanity.
Yeah, I have
The
nothing to add to that. It's just true.
the weapons you have cannot compete against the United States military. You do not have
You
a
know
Predator
those?
drone. You do not have a tank. You do not have an F-18 Raptor or a stealth bomber or a fucking battleship. Stop it.
You know those video games you play and all those like really cool things you fly around with and like murder like hundreds of people? That's what they have. You ain't got shit. Like, and you can still have a bunker if you want, because that's your only hope, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
some
You
sort of
might be
like
able to
amazing.
hide from them. You cannot fight them back. And some of the people who are on that, well, like the North Vietnamese, yeah, they had the advantage of it being their home terrain. You live on the United States government's terrain. You have no surprises for them. Well, I know my
It's not a
property
viable
better
path.
than, oh, stop it.
It's not a viable path. If we need to run the government, we need to win the military. Over.
Yeah,
It's the only way it works.
yeah, or
And
at
so
least a big old chunk of it.
yeah, like so work on that.
Um,
If you're one of those people, work on that. Stop worrying about having fucking guns that can murder people at a high rate of speed.
yeah. And finally, for me, Setting all that aside, if there is a gun restriction that would successfully save a single child's life, yes. I don't care. I don't care about any of your whining or your bitching or your pretend God given right to bear arms. If God wanted you to have an AK 47, you'd have one grown out of your ass, okay? That's what it is. If it'll save one kid's life, it's worth it. I don't care. I'll take all your fucking guns away. And yeah, I'll come get them. I don't mind.
He's got time. That so yeah, that's just enough. That's just because they're I'm done with them. Um, I know you have to go relatively soon. Couple things. Foreign policy. He's for the open invasion of sovereign nations. So I'm on the other side. As far as the Russia-Ukraine thing, I think his approach is fundamentally insane. I think that he there's a lot of credible evidence that he will be manipulated by and possibly even to the extent of controlled by Putin.
Or
And I'm out.
strong men in general.
Yeah. So and her not none of that. Evidence on that. So I think that's a really clear choice. If you're pro Russia invading countries whenever it wants, we disagree, and I'm not going to agree to disagree with you. I just disagree. I just you're what are you doing? What are you? Why do you think that's okay? Have you never? I mean, World War II, World War What, like all the wars, like just stop it. Um, uh, Law and order. Like respect for the rules, respect for the Constitution. They
Which the
both make
Republicans
claims,
claim to be.
and yeah, they both make claims to be the. We touched on the enemy within stuff, which is horrifying, and once again mirrors like some. I know people get mad about this, but like some real genuine Nazi shit. Um, and really any fascist shit. It's not
Yeah,
just the
any
Nazis; they all
fascist
do it.
takeover. The first fascist to take over a country, all about how the enemy's not really from out there, which is a weird reversal for him because his whole thing was about how those people crossing the border are the enemy. But now the enemy's inside. The enemy is inside the house. The call is coming from inside.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe
and
that's it. Maybe he's inspired by the Halloween season and he's going more classic horror. You know.
But that's
Um,
how they all start because that's what they have to do. That's how it works. You have to be able to eliminate the people who vociferously disagree with you.
um, he claims that he has been unfairly targeted by the justice system. He claims that he's a helpless victim of people out to get him. Um, just to have a little bit of a factual part of this, he was civilly convicted unanimously by a jury of his peers in a defamation case with E. Jean Carroll regarding him lying about her and his sexual assault. He was not found liable for rape specifically. He was found liable for sexual assault and defamation. He owes her big old check. Um, I think that would be enough for me. But then there is the I'm a businessman who's the man who was once again not just indicted but convicted by a jury of his peers um, of 34 felony counts of uh,
Fraud.
falsifying fraud, business fraud. Um, and uh, and is we're still waiting for
And by the way, his defense wasn't even "I didn't do it." His defense was "Everybody does it."
um, and it's just he's just a criminal. He's been a criminal for a long time. It's not new. These aren't the first cases against him. Um,
He has a
he
long track record of not paying contractors that work for him. A long track record of not following employment law with employees of Trump properties. It's from well before he was ever anyone's political target.
I mean, one of the first legal fights he ever picked was his father and his company had been, which it wasn't uncommon in New York City. They had basically been caught not renting to African Americans. There was sort of a standard plea deal in the situation. Everyone just took it. It was like, here's a slap on the wrist fine. You know, we wag our finger at you. It looks like we're doing something. Everyone just moves along. The normal kind of government business bullshit, right? And Trump got with Roy Cohn, the lawyer dude, and just like they just decided they were going to be shitheads about it, and like fought it tooth and nail forever, wasting a bunch of government resources and everything else, and ultimately took the fucking deal. And it was just not to just like because he wanted because he resented the fact that that he wasn't allowed to be a racist. Like it's just even if you are a racist, like I sort of just think it's stupid to use your resources that way.
Yeah.
Like pay the fine, pay the fine, and keep being an asshole. Like what? Like what? It's just it's not even smart. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't understand his appeal at this point. I think that's what it comes from. But I digress. It's he's not the law and order guy. Like he has fraud provably. He has like Trump University, all this like awful shit where he fucked people. As Kyle pointed out, has just refused to pay people. Has laughed about it. Stated that his approach, like to a strike, would be to fire everyone and just hire new people. Like he is so anti-working class. Like, and it comes through because he's so anti-working class that like he has to fraud about it. Sometimes, like it's and it just it's he's so just provably criminal. And the fact that he's willing to act like they're out to get him, he talks about this has never happened before because no one's ever climbed as much as he has, so stupidly, openly, and obvious, right? Like other people have climbed at least a bit, but like they had the sense not to like continuously do it and then brag about it. Like eventually people got to do something about you. If you like think about your own life, right? Like think about when you were kids, so like there were kids who like knew the line where they like the really cool ones, the ones everyone liked, like would like, you know, pop a joke or maybe get away with something once, but they knew that if they kept pushing the envelope, it created a fucking problem. He never learned that. And he just fucking does just keeps going. And there's the reason why there's finally consequences is truthfully because he became the president of the United States and they couldn't keep ignoring it because it sends the wrong
Yeah.
message.
He became
Like
too public of a persona.
to get away with all the awful shit he does. And he acts like and I understand from his perspective why it's outrageous because he is basically like, wait, I've been doing this the whole fucking time. And what he doesn't or refuses to understand is, yeah, you've been climbing the whole time, and they were letting you get away with it because you didn't really matter. And then you started to matter.
So I think, in conclusion, what we've demonstrated is that the closeness of the American presidential election proves that life is horrible and people should buy our coloring book.